Alright, so currently I'm going to show you how if I'm using like flashcards, I sometimes have a tendency to get really distracted. And it helps me a lot to be able to interact with whatever it is that I'm, learning or whatever, because I don't learn well just by talking it out or having someone talk to me or just reading it. I have to actually be interacting with what's there. Now, I could do it the other way, but it's just going to be a lot harder and less enjoyable. So, what I ended up doing to counter this was I made programs that were just like Quizlet. I didn't want to pay for Quizlet, and I didn't want to make my parents pay for Quizlet. And I also didn't want them to pay for a new computer or anything like that. So, I was kind of cornered, had my hands tied, and ended up learning to make this on Linux because my computer was far too weak to handle Windows. Each passing update would reduce its speed, the screen would stay off when I booted it, all these kind of problems. Oh, and also memory usage. It started burning through that like crazy, so that was not going to fly. So with the new system came new compatibility issues. So what I ended up thinking about to try and resolve everything is how the computer sees things and how to translate that into different categories. Because essentially the whole gist of computers and AI is that these are, I guess, devices, tools, whatever you want to call them, entities that have the same attributes as a human mind, but process things faster and through actual calculations to help correspond the different chemicals or things like that to actually produce the same result. It's a simulation. It's not reality. It's in reality, but it's not a fully fledged human itself. It is just, it's made to be just like a person or fit the desire or need to fulfill a task. No, to fulfill its purpose of accomplishing a specific task. So, in this situation, how was I going to make that work? Well, what am I doing now? I'm staring at 5 index cards. This is representative of multiple choice, which is a function I added into my study tools, study programs, whatever you want to call them. And with multiple choice, you have 4 definitions or terms and 1 answer, which could either be a definition or a term. So now, what was tricky about this is that I had to visualize. First I kind of did it like, in real life. I had taken 4 pieces of paper, written one thing on one side and the next thing, the actual different thing on the other side, so that I could see, okay, how am I going to get it so that the program reads me one side or, whichever side I need, and then also makes it so that I won't know what it's reading. So what I'm saying by that is, if you're taking a test, the last thing you want is to have it where all the answers are A. You're not going to be prepared if you're just making something like that. You'll always know it's A. So there's no association with whatever's there. You just know, oh, it's A. So now how do you scramble this without showing anything? Well, you would have to do it by classification, but also by using a function to scramble it. So if I'm doing this, it's like I'm taking these and then scrambling them up and then just laying them back down. But even that's not enough, because you've now not solved the problem of knowing which one's which. So that's all well and good. You scramble them, you got the display working, but you need to know, okay, this won't just be equal to A, and we also, just not knowing what's on both sides. That's really the point that I'm hammering home, because, you know, scrambling presents its own new challenges. So, what do I do with the system? You have to make it so that it essentially scrambles it, but while it's doing it, classifies each thing it sees. So it's like when you're looking at a card and you see an ace of spades, perhaps. So you're not just looking at it as an ace, and you're looking at it as an ace of spades, but you're also looking at it as if it's not the other side of the card, which is blank. So you're keeping 3 different classifications in mind. And that was ultimately what I used to my advantage, is just having it open the different things, read them, and then classify them, pass them through different classifications. So now what was going to happen so that it doesn't repeat itself? Because that's not exactly ideal. You know, the last thing you want to do is take a test with multiple questions that are the same. If you know all the answers to the same question and you want to move forward, you can't. So what did I do with the answers I got correct? Gone. Just like in an actual case where you're studying, these answers were taken out of the equation. So 2 folders were used. And so essentially, this is just using it almost as if it is a real environment, but on the system itself, passing it through 3 different classifications, and then also passing it through 2 different folders, one to study from, so like one pile, and one pile to move the correct answers. And then all the way through, what's being considered is what's the best way to do it so that it doesn't break. So you don't want a pile of broken cards or anything like that. So I had to tie up all the loose ends to make sure that, you know, it ran seamlessly and didn't randomly stop at some point. Because that just you wouldn't be able to get anything done. So in the end, the whole thing came down to first visualizing it physically, but then being able to learn how to look at it internally so that I wouldn't have to just keep stacking up cards and, you know, doing all that stuff. And to figure out some of the programs, I would put these, you know, mentally put these down, but then I would also, in my mind, flip them, but then play it back being flipped again. And that's what ultimately ended up leading me to this conclusion,